So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do our top 10 songs by Rancid. We're gonna make it kind of quick because what we're really gonna talk about in this episode is the top 3 songs off of each album. I think that's a more fair way to do it, or else we're gonna have 85% Out Come the Wolves and then a few songs from other albums. So I think anybody could fall into that trap with whichever album is their favorite, be it Life Won't Wait or Self-Titled 2000 or whatever the album is that person enjoys. I do want to say something about how it just feels so good to hear Tim shout, "Take it, Lars, take it away, Lars, come on, Lars," whatever it is he's shouting in their songs, even in 2023, 2024, knowing that they're brothers and friends still, it just makes me so happy, bro. Like I was listening to the new album today, trying to get just some last minute stuff written on my list. And he says that, I think, towards the end of the record, "Take it away, Lars," and then Lars plays like this little lead or whatever. And I was just like, man, that's dope, bro, that they're still, after all these years, they had to have some arguments and some fights, bro. So
yeah, well, they had to have, but they're not a band that's known for that, and they never broke up. Like they never went through. There's never like the period that we know of, at least, that they kept where like Lars and Tim couldn't be in the same room or something like that. Like I'm sure it happened, but man, they were professional about it to the public.
Oh, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were smart enough to take these breaks and do side projects a little bit and kind of like air out any kind of like BS they had going on in their head. But yeah, so okay.
Yeah, contrast that with Blink-182 real quick, where it's like all 3 of the members wanted to make different music, but we're still sort of stuck in the same
band.
Whereas like Rancid still gets to be stuck in Rancid, but okay, you're gonna make the Bastards and you're gonna do the Transplants and you're gonna do Devil's Brigade and everyone. Rancid bore out of the concept of family and unity, so it's not really it shouldn't be surprising that they're still sort of rocking that flag.
I just wanted to shout that out because they've got their haters out there, and
it's a brotherhood band, right? Like even you and I are friends because of this band. Like that's kind of
that's the whole pretty much what got us to talking. Yeah, I mean this band's got. I mean, how many Rancid things are on our walls and our clothing that we wear every day and see every day? I think I've got 6 Rancid posters in this one room, dude. Like that's pretty ridiculous. Okay, before I actually get into numbered songs, I want to shout out and show some love to LA River, man. Boom shakalaka laka 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 boom. Because everybody hates on that song, and I don't get it, man. I think that song is so charming and catchy, dude. Like, is it corny? Absolutely. But do I like it? No, man. I love that song, dude. Like, I think that record came out at a time where I was kind of needing it, though. And so maybe that's what it is. But I love that song. I don't really get it, man. I think it's very bold of them to take that approach and making a song and put that in there, knowing people are probably going to give them a bunch of crap for it.
Yeah, and it's a Freeman song, so like I think that's your spot in the album where you can have a little fun and do a little experimentation, you know.
But yeah, I just wanted to show that song some love because it's not my top 10, of course, but it is one of those songs that when it comes on, I start smiling and laughing and tapping my foot and go,
you sing it right.
Yeah, bro.
Shimmy, shimmy, shake,
shimmy, shake, shimmy, shake. Yeah,
we've all driven with our kids in the back and done the shimmy, shimmy, shake, shimmy, shake.
Right? No, dude. Even my kids know this song. So okay. Before we get on our top 10, do you have any honorable mentions you want to drop? I've got 3 that I want to bring up.
The only one I wanted to put in is I really, 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 and this will come out later, I really like Drop Dead In from the new album.
That's a great song.
I didn't really feel like it, like, there was just no way I could put some of these top 10s ahead of it just based on the gravity of how long it's been around, how long they've been around. So I just wanted to point that one out there of just like of the songs of the new album. I like most of the new album, but that one is the one for me that's kind of the diamond and will eventually be on one of these lists probably.
That song is a tearjerker to some extent.
Agreed.
On the same record, I put the title track as one of my honorable mentions, Tomorrow Never Comes. I think that it will creep into my top 10 eventually, but that song is such a strong lead single that I was almost nervous with hearing the rest of the album. I turns out I really enjoy the record. I think it's a top 3 Rancid record, maybe top 5 on his worst day for me personally, but I really like the album front to back. So, but the best song on there is probably the opener, man. It's a blistering street punk song, and it's very anthemic. But I also, Drop Dead In's that song's really good.
Like, kind of the opposite end of what you're talking about there, but that's why this is a good album. because I remember we were having the discussions at the time. We thought it was just going to be kind of a midlife crisis album, maybe where they were just trying to go so full on into punk the way. But Tomorrow
I
Never
really
Comes is
did.
good, and then you go into Mud, Blood, and it's like, what the hell are we doing? It's a whole different lane immediately on that album. It's a heavy album though, as far as like what in their catalog. It's one of their punkier, I guess, sort of outputs.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. And one of my viewers to the live stream, anybody that's wondering, I do a live stream every Sunday night, 8:30 Central Standard Time, and it's about an hour and a half. We just do new music stuff. We go into some old jams. People donate, and we do their requests. It's like a radio show. We do genre news and such. But we were talking this week. I did a Rancid heavy stream in preparation for this episode. And somebody said that they were reading an article that Brandon was talking about. They went in the studio intentionally trying to make Tomorrow Never Comes feel more like Let's Go than anything else.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. I didn't see that interview, but I mean, like when we talked about this at the time, is that was kind of the success here. It's like almost if they never made Wolves. Remember we said that would have been the next album all those years later. And it's shout out to Let's Go through this list. Is I've sort of reclaimed it a little bit. You and I trash that album for no reason, kind of sometimes.
No,
and I realize how much I do like it. It just I'm not categorizing it ever correctly in my head. That is my thing. I don't think of it.
It's not even that I trash it. It's that I love the other album so much that one gets falls behind sometimes. But I listened to that one yesterday and it's like, okay, where's the skips at? Like there's not skips on that record. So
yeah, it's stronger than I give it. And I like on my video, I had it number 2. So it's not like but I always have it such a distinct number 2. But recently when we've been talking about it, we were kind of wondering like, shoot, man, are the good songs
does it hold up
on there? And it does. It's just it's specific thing. I think it's not as connected to the rest of the stuff as like you and I put it necessarily.
I'm able to take something and say that it's objectively up here while it's subjectively down here. And I think that's where Let's Go falls for me. It's an incredibly important record, and I think it's got no skips. And objectively, it's like a 10 out of 10. But where do I put it in my personal enjoyment in their discography? I say the middle or the second half, honestly. But I still enjoy listening to it because I also think that maybe if I had not gotten that at the same time I got Out Come the Wolves and I had not burned myself just completely out on that record, I have burned myself out on Let's Go almost. I listened to that record probably as much or more than Out Come the Wolves because back then my friends liked it better because they didn't like the ska stuff. So they didn't want to hear ska. So whenever they picked out our album, it was always Let's Go. And then that's the one with that back cover with Tim leaning on the car with the middle finger up. And I had that poster on my wall. So like, Let's Go is a very important album to me. So I need to stop slandering that album. But my other 2 honorable mentions are Liberty and Freedom. I'm a little surprised it didn't quite make my top 10, but it'll appear again later in this conversation. And I think one of the least popular songs on Out Come the Wolves that I find incredibly important to me is She's Automatic. It literally was the last song to get bumped out of the top 10. It almost made my top 10 Rancid songs. And I think a lot of people would find that kind of crazy, but that song is important to me. I'm a romantic type. I have Hopeless Romantic tattooed on my knuckles. I like a lot of that sappy stuff. I like rock and roll music because it's got the, listen to the Ramones songs, dude. Listen to that stuff. That's how I am.
Yeah.
And so that story in that song is really nice to listen to and think of my wife. It's like, I don't know. Lyrics are really great in that song. I love it.
I think it's a good song. I mean, it's a Wolf song, so obviously it's very good.
Right.
My only issue ever has been is where it's at on the album. Is that there's songs I want to listen to around it are like songs that are on my top 10 list. Both of those 2, like specifically, in fact. So it kind of gets it gets a little I kind of rush through it a little bit, so don't always pay enough attention to it. It seems a little more frivolous to me. So I admit though, it's a great song. It's a fun song, and it's one of the few, well, not one of the few, but it's one of the dancey numbers that they have. They have so much dance music within this awesome punk band, and that's like one of those, of those songs.
The word dancey is going to come up again here in a little bit for sure. But let me look at where it actually falls on the album because I think, if I'm not mistaken, bro. Okay.
It's next to Old Friend.
If you go from Ruby Soho all the way through Old Friend, I don't see how that doesn't just fit right in there, man. To me, it's like a standout track. I liked it when I was young too, though. Like that song's been with me Huh?
different. Though. I think the tone of it though is a little bit different. Maybe that's what it is because
it is totally different. It is
emotional
totally
vibe to all those songs going in, like that sort of sadness that Out Come the Wolves kind of has through all of it. She's Automatic is a little bit of a break from that, I think.
Yeah, that is a very, very valid point. I mean, I'm looking at the lyrics for it right now because I don't want to misquote Tim's crazy ass.
You need to read them because you can't understand them.
Dude, I'm telling you, bro. Yeah, dude. Let's see. But I mean, the part where he says, she put her head on my shoulder. I started to hold her, swinging this way in the moment begun. Bro, that every time I hear that, I think of like some romantic high school dance where the girl I didn't actually get was dancing with me. Like, I'm telling you, I'm a sappy little wimp, dude. That's what it is.
Too, when he does that, all the human stuff is happening right in there when he does that.
Yes, bro. Let's see here. I'm so glad that you. Yeah, dude. This. Dude, then Lars starts it off the way that she moves. Well, I was aroused, empowered, and passionate by every move. It's so cold outside. We need a place to hide, go into the club, and to thaw out for the night. Dude, it's so rad, bro. Yes, dude, this is so good.
No,
but this is the kind of crap I'm into, though, man. I'm into these sappy love songs, man.
Oh, it just makes you want to. It makes you want to skate. Want to go.
You know what I'm saying?
That thing.
Right?
Yeah, it's so. No, right. Wolves is awesome. What are we gonna say? Every song.
I'm telling you.
If we're gonna declare it's the greatest music ever written, then that one might be, if I ranked them, that might be my least favorite song on the album, and it would be like a top 100 song of all time for me, though.
Right, man. I think my least favorite song on the whole record is probably "Junkie Man." I just don't care about that song.
Really?
Yeah. Never have. That's been my least favorite song on that whole album forever. Huh. I used to not like Maxwell Murder very much either. I still don't really care about that song. It's all right.
No. That's a good take. It's the iconic bass line, and it gets you started on the funnest musical experience of your life. But it's an intro. I think it's just kind of it's this cool bass intro. And I also have told you, I have this weird thing with the 11th Hour where I know it's a good song, but I just want to get to Roots Radical. And so 11th Hour has because I don't love Maxwell Murder either, but you have to listen to Maxwell Murder if you're going through Out Come the Wolves thing. It does set your stage. You have to listen to that Matt Freeman bass line just to know you're listening to the greatest fucking bass player in the world. As Lars says that one time.
Well, that's not wrong at all. So I will say this, that the one thing about that song is that every single time they play it live, I'm stoked. Which that tells you a lot about the song. Mm-hmm. So,
well, he does he does different little variations on it almost every time too. So that's kind of a unique experience when you see it live.
Well, let's get into my top 10 so we can hear yours as well. I'm gonna make this kind of quick. I think number 10 is off of an album that I really love, and a lot of folks are kind of lukewarm on. That would be Troublemaker. There's a song called "An Intimate Close-Up of a Street Punk Troublemaker." Dude, it might actually be higher up on my list, man. That song really gets me going, dude. Like, that's a skateboard song. It's a drive song. That's an anthem. That is a fantastic song about me. It's about me. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those ones where I hear it, and the first time I heard it, I was like, what's this one called? And then I was like, oh, that's a stupid long name, but I won't forget it. You know? What's your opinion on that track?
Yeah, it's on my 30 list. It was one of the 3 that made it from there. Yeah, and again, I don't love that album. I'm in that group where I just don't love that album. I don't know why I don't love that album, and I like a lot of songs from it, but I just kind of can never get into that album. That's one of the ones that sticks out, that narrative form, which I think there's a lot of good storytelling on that album. I just don't necessarily love the way it all kind of comes together. Whatever, like, it's one of those things. I don't get it, but that song specifically, yeah.
I've gotten a lot more comfortable with people not liking the albums that I like because it shouldn't really matter to me, and I've gotten over it. Yeah. But I do think that it'd be funny, and I'm not speaking about you specifically, anybody out there that would be like, man, I really like Indestructible, but I don't really like Troublemaker. I'm like, wow, they're so similar. Yeah. Yeah, I really like that song a lot. My number 9 song is off of Life Won't Wait. It's The Wolf, dude. Like, I love that song so much that, I don't know. Yeah, this list, all these songs on mine, all 30. It probably ends up being about 32. Are going to end up on a playlist on Spotify. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. I'll put the link in the description eventually. But yeah, The Wolf is just one of those songs that's like, you'll see a theme in the music that I really like, where it's lots of gang vocals, Melody is real catchy. They're more mid-tempo than fast-paced, I would say, at this point. There's a few real fast ones in here, but I like the mid-tempo, like tap your foot, sing along songs more so than the circle pit songs.
It's that back half, and it's not even the back half. Like, it's a good album, but that back section of Life Won't Wait is just amazing. Like, that's where their strength is in that record. That second part of it, where all these songs. I have a lot of songs from that part of the record specifically, and sometimes they're a little interchangeable because I just like that part of the record so much. It's just a little lengthy, as we've talked about before, so it's not always the funnest album to sit through, but it's definitely. When you look at that back half, it's fun. And as you said, mid-tempo and a lot of singing, I think, on that album. I think that's a good Tim and Lars album because they're kind of the stars of that album.
It is kind of hard to sit through. It's very long, but the parts where that record shines, they're so bright that it kind of outworks almost everything else they've ever done.
I think like it's their masterpiece. And I think I've never thought of it that way, but that is exactly what that specific, the way you defined masterpiece. Like, yeah, that is what that album is.
Yeah, I believe that it's their masterpiece. Sorry, my mom just messaged me. Yeah, man, I don't know that they could ever create another piece of art that's the same, or even, I would say, look, man, I love Out Come the Wolves. It's my favorite record of all time. I think it's perfection. But I also think that if you gave the entire world their discography, that they would probably get, Life Won't Wait would probably get voted #1.
Yeah, I think like general alternative rock fan in the 90s, like if they were to hear everything in all of them taste, they'd be like, oh, that one. Because it wasn't as popular of a record, but it's kind of more of the times in that way, where it's got all that melding of styles and that fusion and that late 90s stuff, really integrated together. Yeah, and think of how popular that music still kind of is, like that they were doing on that. It's not necessarily associated with punk that much, but there's a lot of pop music that sounds like Life Won't Wait, even though like Out Come the Wolves is kind of thought of as one of their pop records, but I think it just was a pop record in that it was popular, not necessarily a pop record,
Well, I think if you give that, speaking of Life Won't Wait record, to the rest of the world, Latin countries, over in Africa, over in England, UK, and say, hey, listen to this. It's got a lot of stuff that's going to appeal to the different groups of people. It has got a lot of flavor. It's a very flavorful helping of songs, man. It's got stuff from all over the world in it, and I think that's
describe it flavorful. Yeah, I think that's perfect.
So, but The Wolf is probably my favorite song on that record. I would say maybe top 3 at the worst. Number 8 is actually off of Let's Go. Number 8 is one that when I was young I really liked it. Then I moved away from it for a while, and then somebody did like a review on this song that wasn't a punk fan at all, and they said this is pure unbridled punk rock, and I was like, it is, dude, and that would be International Cover Up. It's so fast and short. I love this song. It has come back into my top 10. Dude, it's just it's just such a simple, like, I like the simplistic nature of a lot of their music because a lot of their stuff is very complicated to play. Tim Armstrong can write some music, bro. People that want to get there and play some 3-chord shit, please stay away from Rancid songs. Don't try to play no bass to it because Matt Freeman will make your freaking fingers hurt. Like, just a bunch. I mean, what a lucky group of people to be a band.
Rancid's a one of one in that way. Like even amongst their peers, like their peers are Pennywise and NoFX and these guys who sound nothing like them. Like that's who they kind of hung with. That was the guys their age. They came on with the Bad Religion scene, but they are such a different band and they have so much just different things. But within that framework, though, of always being Rancid, that's the thing. They don't have a song that it's not a quote Rancid song. Like just doesn't exist in their discography.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, you have bands that mimic the Ramones. You have bands that mimic the Sex Pistols. You have bands that mimic the Descendants. You're going to have the bands that mimic Rancid. I think that they're that kind of band. They are going to have their own family tree. Like the Ramones are actually kind of, the Descendants kind of fall into that category.
Yeah, the Descendants are kind of the Ramones family tree. Yeah.
But you get my point, though, that you're going to have the Rancid type bands as well as the Bad Religion type. Bad Religion is a great example. You have Bad Religion type bands. You got Ramones core. You're going to have like Rancid core stuff where it's just Rancid worship. And I think that's going to be, I think it's already true. There's tons of bands like that, especially in Latin American countries. But yeah, International Cover Up is just a really great fast song. Number 7 is off of our favorite record. It is Ruby Soho. It almost didn't make the cut. And then I realized I'm just a little burnt on the song, but is it a great song still? Well, yeah, dude, that's ridiculous. Of course it is. Like, it's so good. Like, I mean, anybody that hears it come on, we'll sing along with it, dude. Like, there's a wrestler that has the song as their
I was
intro
gonna say
song.
one of my favorite things is when Ruby Soho, the wrestler, comes out and the announcers start singing Ruby's, like these middle-aged white men in their 50s, Ruby,
Right.
Ruby on the broadcast, and everyone in the arena knows the song. In fact,
That's awesome.
People think I reported that they were going to play at one of the events they played at, just because I'm like the wrestling punk rock guy, and I said, "Hey, Ruby Soho came out. It'd be cool if the best punk band of all time came out." I just tweeted that randomly. Then it actually happened a few minutes later, and there's people that think I reported it like I was breaking news.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it's one of those songs that, like, my wife knows it, my kids know it, my mother knows that song, and it's not because it's some kind of like, it's just really catchy. It's a very catchy
good
ska
pop song in that
laden
way. Like, you understand why it caught on. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I didn't know what Rancid was, and it was just on the radio here on the alternative station. It was, you know, it sounded different though than definitely everything else you heard, but it was just, again, it's part of that 90s flavor of everything's cool and everything's in, and it's just it's a great song, really is. And I can see your point of not thinking that you needed to put it on there or going towards it, but when you look at it objectively, yeah, it probably goes on there.
I sat and gave everything a listen again, like a objective listen, and I was like, how could I leave this off of there? Like, what sense does that actually make? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, such a good band, man. Number 6, I believe it's off of, man, I'm getting these two albums mixed up all of a sudden. I think it's off Dominoes, but I could be wrong. Let's see. It's Memphis. Is it off Dominoes or Indestructible?
Indestructible.
Oh, it's off Indestructible. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Dude, for some reason, I get those albums mixed up frequently. Or like songs off of the albums. I get but that song, it's creeping up my list, man. That is a great song. Really good storytelling again. But yeah, what's your thoughts on Memphis?
It's on my other list, so it made my Indestructible cut. It's funny because when we talked about Indestructible, I said it's a song I love, but sometimes I don't always love it listening to the album. I get a little
really?
like it kind of almost pauses the album for me at times. There's been times where I have skipped it while also acknowledging like it's on my list. I really like these sort of poetry songs that these guys have when they're kind of telling stories, and they sort of almost, the music sort of plays a back role and then the music hits, the music does its thing, because they have very few songs. And to the extent that they do, I think I have them all on my list. Those almost like talky type of songs that they do. And this is kind of, it's funny. There's no rap in Rancid, but there's such a hip hop vibe to them. And I don't know if it's like a hip hop vibe or they're both going off of like this reggae vibe but that thing that they do with the rhyming and building like rhythmically, like with the lyrics and stuff like that. I don't think anyone else ever really did that better in punk rock, at least. Like, they're so good at that. And this is an example of that.
Well, it's either them or D.D. King is the best rappers in punk.
That's close. You haven't done your research. Oh, no.
Man, I know, right? So I think the word you use that fits it perfectly would be rhythm. I think that Tim has a very great understanding of that. I think that and it's natural. So like when he does this stuff, he doesn't really intend on it being anything. He just does it naturally, and it comes off like that on occasion. But I mean, how much music do you think this guy listens to? I mean, he's a ton. I don't
see him listening to a lot of punk in his free time. Do you?
No, almost none, I'd say. I mean, when you go listen to his Tim Time Bomb and Friends stuff, it's so eclectic that it makes me just really, it makes me happy, dude. Like, because I listen to a lot of stuff, but sometimes I get stuck in a rut only listening to punk. And then when I listen to stuff like that stuff he put out, it reminds me that it's okay to think outside the box, color outside the lines a little bit, man. Go and listen to some stuff. Like, there's tons of beauty out there, man. Go out and explore it. Like, I like a lot of old 50s and 60s doo-wop and soul stuff, but I don't think about it enough.
Yeah.
So when I listen to some of his old cover songs, I go, I'm gonna go back and dive into this. And
and you hear some of it in Rancid. Like, that's part of that unique of Rancid sound. And I think we should never underestimate the fact that Rancid comes out of Gilman and not LA. So they're close in proximity to like San Francisco and Berkeley and poetry and creativity and art and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's where like their band is kind of, and it's funny, like Green Day doesn't really represent those things when they come to the stage, but they're like Rancid's kind of, I don't know how to say this, like they're prettier than all the other bands. Like there's like a depth to them that doesn't really exist in the same way with other bands.
It's because you have a lifelong group of friends, not that any other bands aren't that, but you have a lifelong group of friends who are all exceptional musicians, and you don't get to be an exceptional musician, without listening to other things than one genre. You can't be. I don't know a single kid that is only into punk that can also play really good music. That all they listen to is punk. That doesn't exist, man. I'm sorry, dude. Like they might learn and start there, but they dive into other things, man. Like Lars, I was always proud of the fact that I liked the band Lars liked whenever I found out he really liked Creedence, CCR.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite bands outside of punk rock. But I'd say like a top 10 minimum. Honestly, probably top 5, dude. Like every song I've ever heard by them is good. But yeah, so Memphis is a great song, and it just showcases their storytelling abilities.
You can hear a little of that CCR kind of stuff actually in Memphis. That's a good one to jump off of. That's, that's
for sure.
That's a rock feel to it. Yeah.
Well, now we're really getting into the thick of things, man. We're talking about our top 5, or my top 5, my top 5. We're going back. Let's see, 1, 2. Whew. Okay, well, there are 4 songs from And Out Come the Wolves fixing to pop up on this top 5. Number 5 used to be my number 1, and I don't mean for some short amount of time. I mean for like 20 years almost. This was my favorite song of all time, and it's just recently gotten to where when I explain why, you'll understand. It's Old Friend off of And Out Come the Wolves. I used to be a lot more sad. I used to have a lot more. There was a lot more for me to say, "Good morning, heartache. You're like an old friend. Come to see me again," in reference to. I have worked hard. I have cleaned my life up. I have met good people and married a good woman, had good kids. I still love that song, but it's not the emotional like anchor that I used to need it to be. So it's kind of slid up to the 5 spot, but I don't think it'll ever not be a top 5 song to me because it's perfect. It is a perfect like ska punk song.
I mean, agreed. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's on my top 10 list, and it's on this list over here. It is of the non-huge Rancid songs. To me, it's the best. Like of the ones that you wouldn't just say off the top of your head necessarily, although it's pretty close to the top. It's the best of like the rest, so to speak.
Yeah, I just don't think there's much else you can say about it. It's a really, 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 really great song. But there are 3 more in that album, 4 more total that I like a little bit more than that. Number 4, also off of And Out Come the Wolves. It's one that the more I listen to it and the more I learn about it, the more I learn the lyrics to it, the more I love it. And that would be Daly City Train. It's just one of those songs where, like, if you know me and you know where I come from, you'll be like, well, yeah, of course he likes that song. So it's just a story that it hit home the first time I heard it. I didn't know what it meant, and then as I got older, I revisited the album, and that song became one that I really loved and was important to me. I don't know if that made any sense. I was saying like 2 things at once. I ran my sentences together, but when I was younger, I didn't understand the song so much. I liked it, but I didn't really understand it. When I got older and lived a little and made some big mistakes and lost some friends, and that song became very important to me. And it's one that now every time it comes on, I mean, I'll sing that song. I'll be 80 years old in my kitchen making eggs, dude, singing the hell out of that song.
I totally know what you mean by that song specifically, and some of the songs on this album. There's a lot of their music that I loved when I was young and didn't resonate quite the same way. That resonates a lot more with me now, even as I listen to Rancid quite a bit less, just because, as you were saying earlier, I've listened to so much Rancid, so it's not like something that I necessarily find to do. But a lot of these songs like were a lot more mature than like what a 15-year-old really would be into. And then now I could totally read these lyrics completely. And some stuff is like major life stuff you've gone through. And some stuff like minor stuff of adulthood that I didn't really snap to that you're kind of seeing, the mundaneness and the working class stuff that hits you on a day to day. But then the deep stuff, like, Jackal having a beer in his hand the last time you seen him.
Right.
And, rolled the dice, never thought to, like that. Again, that resonates with me. It was a cool punk rock lyric when I was 15.
Right.
Now it's something that like you said, I can put a story to, I can put a face to that. That's just different,
Just imagine 13-year-old me, or let's say 14, that's when I first heard them. 14-year-old me hearing Dope Sick Girl versus 30-year-old me, or let's say 28, 14 to 28. Double my life, and look at the difference that song would make to my life at that point in time.
Yeah.
At 14, I'm like, I don't really understand it, but it sounds like it's really good and catchy. I like it. And I know what dope sick means to a certain degree, but I don't really. If by 28, I've gone through it a bunch and I've been there and done that. And so, yeah, but Daly City Train is a phenomenal Rancid song. Okay. Top 3, buddy. This is like, I think we'll have a lot of stuff that we agree on in the top 5. I don't know about top 10, top 5. I feel like we'll have a lot in common.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll have the exact same list, but number 3 is the best song off of Let's Go. That would be
Radio.
Yes, sir. That would be Radio. Dude, if you messed that up, I'd have cried. I'd have been like, rewind. Let's record over that. But number 3 is Radio. It's a song that I have created art about that song. I have a tattoo that's reminiscent of that song. I've got 2. I'm gonna get one on the side of my head. Even like it's their first like perfect song. They made great music before Radio, but let's be honest, dude. That song's the one that really made them go kadoosh into the stars, man.
I mean, there is no other song lyrically that explains why I like punk rock, why you like punk rock, why we all like this band, why we all do this, why we're all crazy. Just like if you ever want to do a psyche eval on any of us, just go listen to Radio. There it is. It's all in the.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. I need to start using that one as like my. Why do you like this? Here you go.
It's kind of like your elevator pitch of like, what do you? Because it's sort of not only it's the good song, but lyrically, and it kind of tells a story. Like every punk rocker kind of has that same exact story of this. This is the one thing that like stayed with me. This is the thing that didn't abandon me. This is the thing that was there. And the way he frames it too is so in such a relatable way. And even he drops the Clash's name for that. It's the only time they really do that in this. Or I mean they've dropped Joe Strummer, but I had to look up when I was a kid what Magnificent Seven was. And the way you tie in it, I was a choir boy. You showed me no heaven. It's really like almost like a coming of age kind of song too. It's just great. I love that song. It's good choice.
I've got a lot of memories to that song, man. A lot of skateboarding, a lot of like just adolescent angst.
The angst, yeah, no, it is. It's very angsty, but in a Rancid way. Because Rancid doesn't really do like the Pennywise like F authority kind of angst. They do angst like this.
No, they have very intelligent lyrics. I've learned that more over the past year talking with you and doing this stuff, like having to like research their lyrics and really read them. They're very intelligent people and they're very political. I didn't realize how.
Yeah, pretty much everything they do is political. They just don't like they don't have like Reagan hanging from a noose necessarily.
Right,
on album
it's political in the stance that they like stand up for what's right. In
the social sense, it's not necessarily partisan. Although I think like it's pretty easy to figure out what their part and they made Rock Against Bush and all that, so they don't try to hide that. But I think it's politics and sort of like that sort of squishy kind of like grad school way where you say everything is politics. They are a political band, very much so. They're fighting power basically in every song, just in a different way that they're kind of
right. Well, if you just read their lyrics on any album, you'll go, oh, okay. They they battle their own inner demons and they do not like radical authority. Okay, tyrants and drug abuse. Every punk rocker can understand that.
That's basically the core of the genre right there.
My number 2 Rancid song of all time. It almost got flip-flopped with Radio, and I think on any given day it could flip-flop with Radio, would be Roots Radical. Okay. It's fucking Roots Radical, man. It's
I view those as the same, not the same song, but a continuation of each other. Like that's
dude, like
that's the Radio for Out Come the Wolves. Is
absolutely. It absolutely is.
And he learned about music, and now here's what he does as a teenage punk rocker. That's how I've always viewed that. And that's what that song is. That song is such a snapshot of teenage punk rockism in like, that's not even a word. It's made it up, teenage punk rockism, but that's exactly what your brain feels like and some of the actual things you do when you're 15 and you kind of, that's being a punk rocker. You can't go to the bars. You can't go to the clubs. You create your own little society for that exact reason. And something strikes you funny when you ran out of money. Where do you go now when you're only 15? I mean, good God, that's so good.
Dude, so one of the things I like about doing this show with you is that it keeps me, what's the word? Not interested, because I'm always interested in this like life and this culture, but like, I guess that's the word I'll use. It keeps me invigorated. It makes me excited. And when I listen to these songs from a different perspective, because I'm doing a list for some reason, or I'm ranking something or whatever, like it makes me go back in and get re-excited about this stuff. And boy, I tell you, man, I can't wait to see them play in a few months. I'm very excited because who knows, dude? They're not young dudes anymore.
I was gonna say, that could be the last time you ever I've already thought in my head, I might not ever see them again. Like that.
They could just stop or who knows what could happen. But my favorite Rancid song of all time is "Journey to the End of East Bay." It is my favorite song of all time. It would take an awful lot to make a song better than that. And it tells the story of Operation Ivy. It's the first one that I knew the weird, complicated lyrics that Tim sang. I figured them out before reading them. That I know that sounds silly, but that's important to me because that means I understood what he was trying to say to me. But yeah, dude, Journey to the End of East Bay.
I mean, it's funny though, but there wasn't Wikipedia back in the day. Like we learned about what happened with Operation Ivy kind of through that song. The core of us got to the core of us. Too much attention unavoidably destroyed us. There you go. You want to know what happened, but there's always been something, the sacred, again, that it's sort of like, again, these songs really just tell the story of the world you live in or the world you wanted to live in as a youth. I think so. Like it was always a sacred ground. There was always a place to belong. Like that. That's just God. That's I can't even have the words because like I think I'm communicating something and not even know what I'm saying. But yes.
Well, I think that the best punk rock out there does exactly that. It takes a moment in time and it captures it. Now, what that moment in time, it could be anything, man.
Yeah, it's a little subjective, but it does do that.
Like, like look at No Future, No Hope. Defiance probably don't feel like that anymore in their adult lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they were young kids, dude, there ain't no future and there ain't no hope. I mean, they were like, they believed that. And so it captures this feeling and this sense of urgency. I mean, think about the live fast, die young thing. Dude, we're middle-aged now. We're not thinking like that no more, bro. It's live fast, die very, very old, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's just certain beauty to punk rock that keeps me young, dude, even at 42.
It really
gives me the energy to
energy
to work out and go run with my kids and all this stuff I do, man. Like,
because there is an eternal youthfulness too to put like in that way. Even though our favorite punk rockers are very old, these songs will never be the songs of old men either. This is young people music in that very pure way that old music is kind of young people. Like music is kind of for young people. But like you generally think of like pop music and stuff like that as being this sort of like eternal youthful music, but really it's punk rock. Really, it's a lot of this very serious Rancid is also very youthful again because they wrote a lot of this stuff at that specific time, especially that album, man. It's just
right.
It's really chronologizing like where they were to that point. A lot of that album is telling how they got there.
There's nothing irrelevant about any of their music, in my opinion. They don't write things that can get time stamped. They write songs that are they're just really great songs, and they stay that way or they don't.
Probably why they don't get branded as much of a political band, even though, as we pointed out, they're very political because they don't have like the Reagan hanging from the news kind of thing. So they're not dated as
right.
Like 1980. Like Jello has good takes these days on his politics as well, but like he's so associated with like 1980s politics, and like, I think Fat Mike's associated with like early 2000s politics, whereas again, it's kind of universal here with Rancid. It's kind of eternal.
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to articulate earlier and didn't do a very good job. Was that they're not time stamped, so they don't seem as political as they really are. That you said it exactly how I was thinking it. But was there anything that you wanted to add to your top 10 that was not on mine, or do you want to go through yours real quick? How do you want to do that?
I'll go through mine real quick. So we had 4 of the same 5 at the top, so we don't have to spend a ton of time with this. But I have number 10. I have The War's End. From Outcome the Wolves.
Really good song.
Sometimes I think it's maybe more of a large song, but no, I mean it was on Wolves, but because when they do it live, he performs it just with the guitar, but it's just
right.
At number 9,
hold on, dude. Damn, that should have been on my list somewhere, dude. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
It's
so good. That song's so good.
Because then you have to kick something off of your list, and then you really probably wouldn't want to do that either. So it's
right.
Number 9, I have from Let's Go. I have 7 Years Down, another song that tells the story of how Rancid came to be. Number 8, I have Ruby Soho. I think in a very similar spot and again, I made the list, didn't have just like you didn't have it on there. I'm like, wait a minute, like does it go and then looked at it?
It starts creeping its way up. You're like, oh, geez, Louise.
Number 7, I have a bit of an underrated one. I think Arrested in Shanghai from Let's Go. I absolutely love that song. Don't even know if it's really a punk song.
Indestructible.
Yeah, what did I say? Let's Go. Yeah.
From
a Red album. Okay, it came from
Red album. Dude, that's a good point. They do look similar if you're walking past them in a record store.
Yeah, that's what my brain was doing. And number 6, I talked about the back half of Life on Wait. I have Leicester Square. I love when Lars just, I got no feelings, I got no insight, I got nothing that you want, so stay away from me.
Okay. Bro, that's a great song.
Meant a lot to me when I was 15. Probably means even more to me now in my late 30s, to be honest.
Let's go.
Number 5, the soul, the biggest contribution I would say by Matt in this, and Saint Mary from Let's Go. I almost said Mary's at the door with a loaded 44 in her hand, shooting down the law that shot down her dear departed. I just wanted so I had it's funny. You talk about the Let's Go life, the Let's Go Outcome the Wolves thing. I had Outcome the Wolves at my house, so I listened to that when I would get home. But in my truck, I had Let's Go. So that was one of the staples of just going through and on the on the CD changer, and you're getting late into that album, and that one always popped up in a good spot. And then here's where our lists are basically identical. So I won't spend any time analyzing this. I'll just go through them. Journey to the End of the East Bay, Number 3, Old Friend. Number 2, Radio, and number 1, Roots Radical. So
number 1's Roots Radical for you.
Yeah, and that one is another one too. It's like okay, I always say it's my favorite song of all time. So by default, it's kind of number 1 on all these lists. Radio, Radio could also fill that slot, and I'd feel perfectly okay if I just decided tomorrow that Radio now was that like I'd be okay if they swapped. But for now, I've always had that hierarchy. But I don't know. They both mean the same thing to me. Like I said, what I mean, meaning like in my heart. Like they kind of represent the same thing to me.